Well, welcome everybody to the February meeting of the Cumberland Planning Board. And we have everybody but George Turner here at the moment. Our first order of business is the election of officers, the chair and the vice chair. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Peter Bingham as chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? This is not Russia, but
Any concerns?
so do I hear a motion for nominations to cease?
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, then all in favor of the nominee? I guess it's,
Yes.
if they've closed, it's done, right?
Yeah, you are
Okay.
the new chair.
You're it.
Okay,
Now we need a vice.
so I'm looking for nominations for vice chairman.
Oh, I thought that one. Who's the vice chair now? Are you still good? Make a motion that we nominate Noreen for vice chair?
I second that.
Second, any other nominations? Motion for nominations to cease?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, congratulations.
Thank
Uh,
you.
So our next, item is the approval of the December 19th, 2023 meeting.
Make a motion that we adopt them, we approve the minutes as written.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
One abstention.
One abstention?
Mine was in Hex.
I wasn't here.
Okay, so we do, as you can see, have a heavy agenda tonight. I know most of you are here for the last item, and we will be expeditious as possible. We do try to keep the trains running on time, but everybody has their ability to be heard. So the first item is, we have no staff change approvals, by the way. We have no minor change approvals. So we'll go right to the agenda. Item 1 has been tabled. So we'll go to item 2, which is a public hearing, which is a site plan review for issuance of an annual renewable special permit for the 4th consecutive year for operation of the Story Brothers gravel pit located at 48 Goose Pond Road, as shown on tax successor map R07, lot 48, and our representative is Robert Story. Carla, do you want to lead this off?
That's the introduction. I just want to point out that the Town Code Enforcement Officer, William Longley, has stated there have been no complaints made to him regarding this location during the past year.
Rob, do you want to say anything?
This is our 4th application for renewal. Next year will be our 5th, and then after that, we can, I guess, ask for 5-year windows versus an annual renewal. We purchased the pit in 2019 from the town. It's on Goose Pond Road. We are the abutters on 2 sides of this property, and if there have been no complaints, and none that I'm aware of, then we ask that we be approved to continue operating the gravel pit for another year.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I will open a public hearing and invite anybody who wishes to speak on this item to come forward to the podium. And voice is going to the dog.
To the mic.
Mary, to,
Terry Maloney Kelly. I had to get up because I'm sitting there smirking, thinking how far we've come in West Cumberland with 20 years ago and the gravel pits, and that's the least of our issues in West Cumberland now. So, but I know that things have quieted down, and thank you for being great neighbors as best you can with what you do.
Thank you.
thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address this matter? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the board.
Carla, are there any changes to the findings of fact since the
No, I was just going
last
to
year's?
suggest that you could make a motion to waive the reading to,
I will make a motion that we waive the reading of the findings of fact.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I will make a motion that we adopt the findings of fact as written.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? And
I will make a motion that we approve site plan review for the issuance of an annual renewable special permit for the operation of Story Brothers Gravel Pit located at 48 Goose Pond Road as shown on tax assessor map R07 lot 48, subject to the limitation of approval and the standard condition of approval.
Second.
here a second. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's done. Congratulations, and another year. Going to item 3, public hearing is amendment to approve Brentwood subdivision to adjust the lot lines for subdivision Lot 6 located at 11 Brentwood Drive, tax assessor map R02C, Lot 8, and subdivision Lot 7 located at 81 Ravine Drive, tax assessor map R02C, Lot 9, in the low-density residential LDR zoning district. The applicant is Stephen Broadhead, and the representative is Paul Babridge. And the consulting engineers are Colliers Engineering. Carla?
yes, is anyone here tonight to speak to Steve? You're here. Oh, okay, great. In my memo to the board, I explained that this doesn't really affect anyone except for the person who's requesting it, Mr. Broadhead, and his neighbor, Mr. Simino. Those, even though they're affecting 2 subdivision, the lot lines don't affect anybody other than those folks. They've brought us a plan, which was in your packet, and if this is accepted, you'll need to remember to sign it after the meeting tonight so they can record it in the registry.
So, Mr. Broadhead, do you want to say anything?
While he's getting, can I
Yes.
ask Carla a question? Carla, in Appendix D of this and the next item, there's a checklist, a long checklist with many of the items being not applicable, but there's a waiver request in the box in the appendix. A couple of them are applicable apparently, and but most are not, yet there's still a yes. Could you, maybe I'm missing something, but why are, there's probably 40 waiver requests here. It doesn't seem like we normally see that.
Well, not applicable doesn't require a waiver. It's just saying it's not anything that needed to be reviewed because it didn't apply to the request. You're right, there are,
Lots.
oh, I see, they did check as yes for all the waivers. Those are not required, in my opinion. We could go through them and talk about each one, but really, if you think about findings of fact for a subdivision, none of them really apply. There's no water sewer, there's no, landscaping, impact on budding properties, all the types of things we usually look at.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be sure that
Okay.
So, Mr.
that was
Broadhead?
correct.
Hi, I'm Stephen Broadhead. I live at 11 Brentwood Drive. And the application for the Brentwood revision is adjunct to the next item, which is an application for the Fairwind revision. This is a basic land swap where my neighbor, Tony Simoneau, has his driveway on a right-of-way across my property. To the rear of my property, part of Brentwood, is adjunct to Fairwind, and he owns 2 lots in Fairwind, a piece of which, for some unknown reason, when these subdivisions were created, ended up with a wedge of property that comes into basically my front yard. So we agreed that I would swap his driveway for a piece of his lots, which are behind me. The complication was that we have 2 subdivisions, and one of the subdivisions, Fairwind, has part of its jurisdiction in Yarmouth and part of it in Cumberland. So Yarmouth waived any interest in doing anything with this, and it came back to you folks for approval. So nobody else is involved. Tony owns 3 of the lots, and I own 1 of the lots.
Okay.
So he can finally fix his driveway, and I can finally walk around my backyard, or front yard, without worrying about it.
Okay, questions from the board? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing, and is there anybody from the public that wishes to opine on this matter? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and turn it back to the board. Josh?
Carla, we don't need findings of fact for this or the other.
I don't believe so, because we're not reviewing anything, any of those standards that I feel. You may disagree, but
Okay. And we don't need any sort of, I'm assuming notice went out to the vast majority of the neighbors anyway, and they don't appear to be here, but we don't need any sort of acquiescence from a homeowners association or anything to change the subdivision plan.
no.
Great, thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion of some kind.
Public hearing.
We already
Wait,
We
opened
did
and
the public
closed it.
hearing.
And
Come
there really
on,
is no one
Carlos,
here.
stay.
Okay,
What do you came up?
apologies.
I will make a motion that we approve an amendment to the approved Brentwood subdivision to adjust the lot lines for subdivision lot 6, located at 11 Brentwood Drive, tax assessor map R02C, lot 8, and subdivision lot 7, located at 81 Marine Drive, tax assessor map R02C, lot 9 in the LDR zoning district.
Seconded.
The motion has been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's approved. The next item, which is a sister item to the previous one, is a public hearing amendment to the approved Fairwinds Estates subdivision to adjust the lot lines for subdivision Lot 1 located at 10 Fairwind Lane, tax assessor map R02C, Lot 16B, and subdivision Lot 10, located at 5 Fairwind Lane Extension, tax assessor map R02C, Lot 16G, in the low-density residential, LDR, zoning district. Again, the applicant is Mr. Broadhead, and the representatives are Mr. Babbage and of Colliers Engineering. So, Mr. Broadhead, do you have anything further to say on this?
No, I think I've said enough.
So I will open the public hearing, and is there anybody from the public that wishes to discuss this matter? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and turn it back to the board.
I will make an amendment that we approve an amendment to the approved Fairwind Estates subdivision to adjust the lot lines for subdivision Lot 1 located at 10 Fairwind Lane, Extension Tax Assessor Map R02C Lot 16B, and subdivision Lot 10 located at 5 Fairwind Lane, Extension Tax Assessor Map R02C Lot 16G.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is approved. Thank you, Mr. Broadhead. All right, moving on to item 5, a public hearing. Amendment to a approved site plan for an 8-space parking area for access to the Rhines Forest to be located at 48 Blanchard Road, Tax Assessor Map U12, Lot 6, in the medium-density residential area, MDR, and the rural residential area 1, RR1, the zoning districts. The applicant is Chebeague and Mainland Island Trust. The property owner is Mark Reed, and the representative is Jeffrey Reed of CV Mahar Engineers. Carla, do you want to lead us off on the short version?
Very short summary is that this was approved, I think in December, by the planning board, and there needed to be modifications to the entrance for purpose of saving a significant amount of money that would have been required because of additional fill. So the location was shifted, the packet went out, and then the water district finally got back to Mr. Reed and said, well, you should move it a little bit further. I think, was it 8 feet?
It was about 6 feet.
6
yeah.
feet further towards the town center. So what you're reviewing today is pretty much the exact same thing. It's just a location that was shifted away from where it was originally approved.
Mr. Reed, do you want to go
Oh,
ahead?
wait, Peter, sorry.
Yes.
No worries.
Carla, I'm assuming that the 3 requested waivers were approved when we did the original approval? Is that a correct
I
statement?
believe so.
Yes.
Could be, you remember that? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, Mr. Reed?
Sure. So Jeff Reed with CV Mahar Engineers here to present for the Chebeague and Cumberland Land Trust. As Carla had mentioned in the summary, she's already covered most of my PowerPoint presentation. So what I might do is just kind of skip through some of the initial discussion. These are items, lot size, zoning, lot numbers that were covered in the opening comments there. Just as a refresher, the red area here is going to be the location of the parking lot. That has not changed since the original approval. What has changed is the location of the parking lot access. The lot is still 8 spaces with 1 ADA van accessible space. Construction will be the same. It'll be a gravel buildup with reclaimed asphalt. Some of the disturbed areas and impervious areas and wetland impacts have changed to reflect the new access location. Just kind of as a refresher, the original approved site plan looked like this. We had a straight entrance coming off of Blanchard Road down into the 8-space parking lot. Because of the slope requirements and elevation changes, required a substantial amount of fill underneath the parking so that we would have acceptable grades coming in off of Blanchard Road. What we have done instead, and what we're proposing today, is this configuration. The parking area is in the same spot. We had reversed the hammerhead. If you can see here, my cursor is now on this end, and we shifted the site entrance a little further to the southeast, where we're able to come in and over the greater driveway distance, come down to a lower elevation and save on that fill. The item that Carla had mentioned, shifting that driveway down on the page, relates to an existing fire hydrant here. And through the peer review comments, we're coordinating both with the local fire department as well as the water district to achieve an acceptable distance off of the pavement. Where we landed is that we're about 4.5 to 5 feet off the edge of this radius. We have a bollard located 3 feet off the hydrant per the fire department request to protect that. And I received an email from the water district saying they were satisfied with the changes on Friday. I received an email from Dan Small, the fire chief, today saying he was fine with the changes. And this is what we're here to present tonight.
So, questions from the board?
Quick question. Could you bring up the picture of the amended site plan?
Sure.
So could you talk to the new location of the entrance and how it relates to the two driveways that are on the other side of Blanchard?
So, let me see if I can, hang on just a minute. I may be able to do this better by pulling up a set of the project plans, because it doesn't show in the slide that I had there. So if you bear with me here. Where's my full screen? May not be able to show that on this. Go back to this here. So, if I can zoom this in. There we go. You can see here, and apologize me jumping around on this. So again, the parking area hasn't changed at all. Where we were coming in previously was off the center of this box, which is a little off from that existing driveway, the longer driveway across the way. This is going to be coming out now a little bit to the south, a little bit more in line, but not quite over as far as this existing driveway on this other side.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Paul?
Yeah, just a couple things. In the intro, there's a comment that a preliminary, that there'll be a directional sign on Range Road.
I think that should be Blanchard.
It should be.
probably be
I'm
Blanchard.
just pointing that out. It might have been on the original. Next, in the second page, and under site plan, there are a number of issues raised by the engineer. One regarding grade.
Right.
And
So we
is
had.
that all addressed, or?
Yes, they have been. What we did, the initial design, we were trying to come down into the property as quickly as we could. Okay, so we followed a residential access road standard for less than 50 vehicles a day, which included a 3% grade coming in 25 feet off the edge of pavement. And then from there, we came down at a maximum driveway grade of 10%. What we did in response to the comment was we shifted and adjusted that to the regular site plan standard, which is 3% off the edge of pavement for 40 feet. And I'm not sure if you can see it actually on there, but we included some spot grades in here as well. So a little out of focus here. These spot grades represent 25 and 50 feet off the edge of pavement, and they outline 3% coming into the site. And then from there, we went to an 8% grade down and around the corner. So those comments have been addressed with this design.
Okay, and I presume all the others have, for
Yes, they have.
instance? Okay, the surface and, all right, thank you.
Josh?
Carla? Amendment to an approved site plan for an 8-space parking area for access to Rhines Forest to be located, okay. No, so it is 48 Blanchard Road, correct?
Yes.
Good, okay.
Other
Uh,
que- oh, excuse me.
Do you have the letter from the Maine Historic Preservation Commission?
Yeah, we submitted that last week.
Okay. And in the findings of fact, we say that the sight lines on utilization of, traffic circulation parking, we say that the site distance is 350 feet in one direction, which would be pretty much, which would meet the standard, but it would be right at the standard, and 485 in the other direction. In your application, it says 405 feet in one direction and 1,000 feet, or greater than 1,000 feet in
Yep.
the other.
So it's the larger of the two. I mean, I went out there and I measured it myself.
Okay, so we just need to adjust our findings of fact. Thank you.
Anything else, Josh?
That's all I've got.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing for anyone that wants to address this subject. And again, hearing none, I will turn it back to the board to see what we have no waivers, is that right, Carla?
As the town engineer stated, and I highlighted it in your review on page 2, the third waiver was requesting a marking of all trees greater than 10 inches in caliber. The clearing proposed will be minimal, and trees over 10 inches are not common in this area, but he suggests that make sure that the planning board doesn't want a survey.
We already approved them.
We did for before, and just want to make sure you're good with it again. Okay.
Can we even rescind waivers?
Well, I think now there
Well,
are
it's
a couple
plan.
that are going to be cut according to,
Yep.
but I have no problem with it.
So are we ready for some kind of action then?
Yeah, I don't think we can, we're gonna have, we have some changes to the findings of fact, so I don't think we can waive the reading.
Okay, Lorraine, can,
Oh, really?
You had to know that was coming.
You got the change?
No, I didn't. Well, the changes.
Come to it.
We'll get to it.
Okay. All right. Findings of fact. A, utilization of the site. The plan will minimize impacts to the natural features of the site by minimizing disturbance to undeveloped areas as much as possible.
I think before I've done, to save a speech for the next item, that part of our review of any kind of subdivision is that there are 17 standard conditions of approval that we have to review. They're applicable in this case. They will be applicable to item 6. And these are the 17 things that are in our purview to review. So as Lorraine goes through this, do pay attention to the particular items that come under our purview, because those are the only 17 things that will be under our review when we take the next item. So this is education time for everybody.
Could I just add that the findings here are for site plan review, which is a review for a commercial enterprise as opposed to, say, a residential subdivision. The findings of fact for the site plan review here will be the same as for the Rusty Lantern. But if you think forward to when the Dave Chase project might come forward, that's going to be a whole different set of standards.
So that thing, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Killing two birds with one stone here.
All right. I think this one is worthy of reading in its entirety. Land disturbance has been limited to the mostly open areas of the site with less mature tree growth. Clearing in the forested area has been avoided completely. A wetlands delineation was completed by Copy Environmental LLC, which identified the stream and forested wetlands associated with it to the east and west of the proposed parking area. A copy of a letter from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife is on file. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds that the standards, of this section have been met. Traffic circulation and parking. The traffic at the proposed parking area will be controlled by the restrictions of the conservation easement, which details needs for conserving as much of the natural environment as possible. Based on the limited parking available, traffic volume will be limited well below the 100 trip in a peak hour, and a traffic movement permit is not required. There are et ceteras going there.
Except, Lorraine, that's
Yes.
where we need to, in
That's
that
was
next, in
change.
subsection A is the change. So we need to change 350 feet to 405 feet in one direction and greater than 1,000 feet when looking in the other direction.
405 and 1,000. Okay, the combined entrance and exit drive for the parking lot has a site distance of 405 feet in one direction and 1,000 feet when looking in the other direction. Based on the MDOT standards of 10 feet for every mile per hour of the posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour, this standard has been met. The interesting thing, I don't know if I can interject this here, Carla, is if you pass by where this entrance is, as you're leaving town, the speed limit sign changes to 35. As you're coming into town, before you get to the entrance, there's a 25 mile per hour sign. So I'm not sure if we're following the 35 or the 25, because it's technically in both zones, depending on which direction you're going.
So the site distance meets the requirement for both. It meets the 35, so it'll also meet the 25.
Thank you, and I apologize for bringing that
not at
up
all.
at this late date. Okay, I'm just going back through additional information on parking and parking placement and traffic circulation based on the above facts. The planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Stormwater management and erosion control. The proposed stormwater management plan was reviewed and approved by the town engineer. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Slopes and wetlands impact were limited. Erosion control will be in the conformance with the Maine Erosion and Sediment Control Manual will be applied during construction. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water, sewer, and fire protection. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. There will be no need for sewage disposal in the parking area. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. No utilities are required for this parking area. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. And lastly, fire protection. The parking area has been sized to allow a fire truck to pull into the drive aisle if needed. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water protection. There will be no groundwater or hazardous material discharge as a result of this project, etc. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water quality, no substances described above will be stored or discharged in a way that could contaminate surface or groundwater. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Aquifer protection, the parcel is not located in the aquifer protection area. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Floodplain management. The parcel is shown on floodplain map number 230162-0015B. The location of the proposed parking area is within an area designated as Zone C, area of minimal flooding. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Historic and archaeological resources. A review letter has been provided from the Maine Historic Preservation Commission. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Exterior lighting, no exterior lighting is proposed. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Buffering and landscaping. The parking area will be buffered from views on all sides through existing vegetation. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Noise. There will be no activities associated with the parking area that will result in noise. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Storage of materials. There will be no external storage of materials. There will be no dumpster or trash receptacles. Signs will be placed instructing visitors to remove any trash generated. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Capacity of the applicant. technical capacity. The applicant has retained the services, and I always mispronounce this, so if you could say it out loud for me and I'll repeat it.
Savian Mahar. engineer.
Savian Mahar Engineers Incorporated. Financial capacity, there is a letter on file dated July 25th, 2023 from Atlantic Federal Credit Union stating that the project is estimated to cost $50,000 or less, and that the CCLT has sufficient funds in its bank accounts to finance the project. Based on the above facts, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met.
I make a motion that we adopt the findings of fact as amended.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed?
Thank you very much.
We're not done.
We're not
We're
done.
not officially done yet. But Carla, we have 3 proposed conditions of approval. And
Yes.
since we don't need the main historic, we don't need another one, we're good with just those 3?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a motion that we approve an amendment to an approved site plan for an 8-space parking area for access to Rhines Forest to be located at 48 Blanchard Road, tax assessor map U12 Lot 6, subject to the limitation of approval, the expiration of approval, the standard condition of approval, and the 3 proposed conditions of approval.
I'll hear a second.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And
You're welcome.
Thank you.
we're done. So now, the express train that we've been on is now going to stop in West Cumberland. The next item is a public hearing, and this is, just to let you know, this is kind of the first stage of this project. Generally, on things of this size, as we did a few months ago with the Chase thing, that this is they are presenting a site plan review. And what they're doing is, again, looking for questions and comments from the planning board and also comments from the public. And once that's done, they will come back, probably incorporating some of the stuff that is brought up here tonight, and will come in the next time for what is called a preliminary approval. So this is kind of tonight informational of what they're looking to do, and again, getting comments. I will add that for this, under the zoning of the area, that this project is a permitted use within this zoning area. So to formally introduce, we have a public hearing for a site plan review for a development of a key convenience store with fuel pumps and a bank and with drive-through to be located at 181 Gray Road, tax assessor map U9, lot 12, and a portion of 173 Gray Road, tax assessor map U19, lot 13, in the Village Center VCC zoning district under the US Route 100 design guidelines. The owners of Lot 12, Ron Kopp Sr. and Ron Kopp Jr., Lot 13, Ron Kopp Sr., Howell Kopp, and Gerald Kopp Jr. The applicant is Cumberland Real Estate Holdings, LLC, and the representative is Chris Newfield from Priority Real Estate Group. So, Carla?
Chris is actually Kurt.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I just read.
Did I write that?
No.
Curtis Newfield, okay. As I explained in my memo, this is the initial hearing for this project. It's a substantial project for the town of Cumberland. We've not had something like this in that it has two components, the market and gas station, and then the bank. Planning board's reviewed and approved the credit union up on Main Street, so we have done that. But again, this is a project that involves two entities. And I have been working back and forth with Kurt and the hydrogeologist that the developer hired to prepare a hydrogeologic report. And that is going to be one of the questions the board needs to think about, is whether you would like me to have a peer review conducted of that study. It would seem to make sense that you would want that. Kurt, can you think of anything else that we should talk about before you go into your presentation?
No, I think that's it. I would like to offer, if anybody would like to move up to empty seats, I have quite a few slides in a PowerPoint presentation to explain the project, and I know from where I was sitting, I couldn't see the screen. So I'll give you an opportunity to do that. But if you're comfortable, I would introduce myself. I am Curtis Neufeld. I work with Priority Real Estate Group, who is Cumberland Real Estate Holdings, or Cumberland Real Estate Holdings, yes. It should be Craig. Cumberland Real Estate Group, just another LLC owned by Priority Real Estate Group to keep all of them separate. Who are we? We're new perhaps in the town. I'd like to just introduce both us and Rusty Lantern a little bit more. We are local companies. We're based in Topsom and Brunswick. We have, Priority Real Estate Group, under different LLCs, develop these stores and own the land, and they're operated by Rusty Lantern Market. They're based out of Brunswick. We're based out of Topsom. And Jim Howard, who's with me tonight, he's the president. He has assembled a team of all small Maine companies to do these projects. The Joy Brothers, Carmel Electric, K.R. Uland does our site work. There's a handful of them in there, and I probably missed a couple. But the focus is to keep it as local as possible. The convenience stores are really focused on Maine communities. They sell Maine products to the extent possible. Each one has a Maine section, Maine craft beer, Maine popcorn. I'm a fool for little ads. You'll find that in there. So just want to introduce that, because a lot of times people will see the Irving banner on the canopy and say, oh, it's just a big oil. But no, they are the gas that Rusty Lantern Market sells. But if we had a refinery in Maine, we'd probably sell that gas. So just want to introduce us. We're you folks. So the idea is to develop or redevelop this 3.2 acre site. The only thing operating on there right now is a used car dealership and a little garage that I think has been there since about 1957. The rest of the site has been slowly cleared over time. In about 1997, it was mostly cleared, but not completely. And then, probably for the last decade, it's just been really a hard gravel site. So I think it is ready for something better to happen. This new store is about 5,038 square feet. We'll see as we go through the slideshow, it'll have an indoor seating and outdoor seating, a really nice updated architecture for what you're used to in convenience stores. We want to have outdoor spaces. Almost all of our projects include a gazebo where folks can take maybe sit a spell. These Rusty Lantern Markets really have a great kitchen, and they do a lot of lunch business. And over time, the owner there at Rusty Lantern Market has seen people eating in their cars and say, well, that's no good. People stopping here for lunch. Let's give them a place to actually sit down. We get a lot of contractors coming to the sites. Some of them have trailers. It will have regular and diesel fuel offerings. The bank is on the plan, as shown at 29,035 square feet. That's a prototype that we have developed for other banks, but we do not have a tenant at this point. We're going to be actively marketing one. So when you see the architecture as I go through the project, you won't see a lot on the bank because we don't have a known tenant yet. Oh, I should mention we do all of our financing through Maine banks as well. So it's a good-sized site. We have plenty of parking for the two uses. and we'll talk about the landscape and lighting plan. We have started early working with the town and Goral Palmer on the proposed roundabout that would go at the intersection, and we made sure that the building location and the entrances would work when that gets built. We've had scoping meeting with Maine DOT on the project. They were reviewing it now, and as I'll show you later, as part of that project, they've requested sidewalks be extended to the local neighborhoods. And we will be getting a DEP variance to have those tanks sited within the aquifer protection zone. So the site outlined in yellow there is right on that corner. I think we all know where it is. You can see the Autoland building. The site plan will have two entrances, one off Skillen Road and one lined up opposite the entrance to the Cumberland House of Pizza. Again, those are set back, this one particularly as far back away from the intersection as possible. So the convenience store is set here. It's got this little bump out. You'll see that in much more detail later. We've got an outdoor patio. We've got a gazebo out back. There's one connection here to this garage, which is owned by the Ron Kopp, who's selling us the land. So we'd like to see that. We're going to have 4 fueling pumps that allow for 8 fueling stations. These are tanks. This is the dumpster enclosure at the back of this parcel. One entrance for both uses. The bank is intended to have 2 drive-throughs and a bypass drive-through. It is a dead-end parking lot. DOT did not want to have an extra entrance over here. And as I'll explain, this might wind up with a little bit of redesign based on conversations I've had with the fire chief. The drainage, I'm trying something different here. Hopefully it works. Highlighting the green are basically the storm drain pipes and catch basins, and the blue areas are underground chambered systems that will have soil filters underneath them to meet the DEP standards. They're very large because we have to detain up to the 50-year event for DOT. The utilities will be mostly extended from the adjacent roads. The blue highlighted lines are water, yellow is gas, and we will come underground from existing utility poles for data and electric. And then each site will have its own septic system, which will be set to the rear of the site. And those have been designed by Albert Fricks and Associates. There's a landscape plan. I apologize, the one that got out in your packet did not get caught up. There is a driveway connection here where I showed trees before. That is corrected. The dumpster will be screened. We'll have a number of street trees along the frontage and we call border plantings for the buildings here. The sign over here will have a lot of landscaping around it. Lighting plan, this won't mean much to you folks in the audience, even here. It's a point-by-point plan that's prepared to show the lighting levels in the from the fixtures out on site. The peer reviewer did note that there seems to be some offset between the lighting and the levels. I wanted to bring it up to show that we are going to have a little bit of light trespass out here into the road and get feedback as it continues, whether or not that's okay with the board to have some light trespass into a public right-of-way. I know lighting is often a concern for neighbors, so I wanted to bring a couple of pictures here. This is one of the original Rusty Lantern projects. This is in Topsom, very near where I live and work. So showing that the LED lights and the sign lights, this one here is uplit, which you don't allow, and how it looks. It doesn't exactly glow at night. Here's one from the parking area. It shows the lighting underneath the canopy is fairly well defined right around where it is. And then we always use LED full cutoff fixtures. An aerial vicinity plan, largely to facilitate other discussions. But you can see where some of the existing houses are. I'm sure some of the residents are here. The existing wooded area that runs here. It's going to be left intact as much as possible, except for where we have to clear some trees to put in the septic tanks. This is a plan that shows where the sidewalks would go. Our site is over here on the right-hand side of the screen. One would run all the way up to Kathy Lane, and then the other one's going to run where there's not already some raised islands in front of Mr. Kopp's shop. It'll run out here to Faraday Lane. Those are going to be set basically at grade, and again, that's part of what the DOT asked for, but it always is a good idea because we're really looking to service the neighborhood, and if folks want to walk to us, they should be able to do so safely. This is a proposed roundabout overlaid on there. You can see the sidewalks and the area, kind of the extent of where that would be. You can see the existing building as well as the proposed building are set back comfortably from the preliminary plans for the roundabout. If that gets built, this crosswalk here, that's part of the project, will get relocated. And as part of this project, we have a mid-block crossing. And that location was selected coordinating with our traffic engineer at Sewell so that people who might be pulling out would see people at the crosswalk, and this will have those rectangular rapid flashing beacons activated right there. So people would have time coming out to see that, as well as folks approaching from the south. This is the technical elevations of the building. You can see that there's a lot of brickwork and rectangular windows, peaked roofs with architectural shingles. The whole thing is about just under 30 feet tall. So this would be top one from the parking lot. And this is from the side that you would see from Skillen Road. And this is the other side. But we've got much better architectural renderings from a company we use called Pepperchrome. So we can see the entrance here. This will be the main entrance. A lot of, this is actual real rock work, goes up to the ceiling. We've got windows above the primary entrance, primary windows here. This peaked roof with the nice wood architectural elements, clapboard siding. These new stores, we call them the Gen 2 stores because they're getting a little bit nicer than what you typically see in a convenience store. Going to have an outdoor seating area available. They have a double-sided fireplace in the tower of the this bump out. We have several more views here. I'll step through. As seen from Skillen Roads, you would see where that gazebo was proposed. There's a fenced-off area over here that is where the HVAC equipment will be set at ground level. A bird's eye view if you're able to jump real high. But it does show the spacing, how things are laid out. These are the tanks, and realizing that people will likely park out here, we've designated some parking spaces on the plan. It's raised a couple of questions from folks about why they're there and what's the impact of the truck moves through there. If it's something that we'd like to discuss or give us some feedback on tonight, we'd be happy to hear it. Again, the view as if you're approaching from the south. This is not the actual sign, but we are proposing a pole sign here with the downward-facing lights. This would be a view if you were sitting or approaching the intersection from Skillen Road. Again, fenced-off HVAC equipment. Like to put flags on the corners of these. I don't know if you've been to the Lisbon store, you'd see that there. Cross on Blackstrap Road, looking back at the site. And again, the Skillen Road entrance. This is not a rendering. This is an actual picture from the one in Turner, Maine, that just opened not long ago in the snow. And I wanted to include that one so you could see rendering to real life, and also to note that on the patios, the owner, the operator here, puts different size and shape planters around. We had started with the idea of putting an ornamental fence to define the limits of the patio. But talking it through, thought that the planners would serve the same idea to give a comfort separation from vehicles and also provide opportunity for the plantings. You can see the furniture and the fireplace. We got a couple others here from different stores. Are even doing, I don't know if you've seen these propane through glass rock type fireplaces. In addition to this one here is in West Paris, I believe. Also West Paris, you can see the planters around the patio area. So again, really trying to make outdoor spaces when it's seasonally comfortable to sit outside. And inside that tower, there's some nicer seating areas, the fireplace, a very tall ceiling, some nice architectural lighting, and then the big windows here really make a nice impact. So again, the idea is that this store is more than just a place to come in and pick up some milk. It's a nice place to hang out and have something prepared by their kitchen. And every store does have a very nice offering of different sandwiches and prepared goods, as well as to-go items. We'll talk about the aquifer protection just a little bit. Of course, I mentioned that we would have the DEP waiver review. And some people might be wondering, how in the world can you put tanks in an aquifer protection, a zone that's aquifer protection? Well, the DEP allows for it, the town allows for it, the DEP says it's okay. So what has happened? As these fuel systems have evolved, they've gotten better to prevent very costly and unfortunate incidents. So all tanks now are double-walled. You have a tank within a tank, and the space between those tanks is filled with what they call an interstitial fluid. They have alarm systems all the way, operating 24/7. And rather than read all this, I want to jump to you real quick, a couple of pictures to help you understand what I'm saying. So if this was a cross-section through a tank, the green area represents a normal condition, and you've got a fluid in there that rises up into this riser on the tank. If everything's working great, that's what's happening. If you would happen to have an inner wall leak, that fluid's going to leak into the tank. It goes below the top, and a sensor goes off, alarms go off in the office, and people come out and fix it. If there was an outer wall breach, same thing. It leaks from the outside and this fluid, not the petroleum product inside. And if you had a high groundwater level, which we don't at this site, and water were coming in, it would force the fluid up higher in that area. So with this tank, double wall tank technology and double wall piping, I don't know statistics in Maine. We just did one of these in New Hampshire, and they had not had a leak that got into the environment since they started mandating them about 15 to 20 years ago. That's just another picture kind of showing the same thing. You can see the green areas. Underneath each of the dispensers, there's also a sump that if anything were to drain internally or leak internally, that drains back to the tank. This shows vents, and then this shows that you would have the alarm panels inside the building. So the technology has really come a long way. These tanks are inspected really weekly at the fuel ports, monthly and annually. The DEP only allows them to be in the ground for a certain amount of time, 20 years, unless you get a 5-year extension. So they're closely monitored to make sure that they're safe, regardless of whether or not you're in a designated aquifer protection zone. In addition to that, these are just some of the products that Rusty Lantern has to train and help people in case of a problem. A heavy emphasis on safety procedures, training and certification, which are guided both by the state and the EPA. So every operator there, meaning anybody who works at the gas station, the convenience store, has to have proper training and know how to respond if there's any sort of incidents, and again, frequent inspections. So in addition to that technology, I just want to turn it over briefly to Lisa Jacob with CV Mahar, who with her colleague helped prepare the hydrogeologic study.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great, thanks. My name's Lisa Jacob. I'm a licensed geologist and a principal at CV Mahar Engineers. I'm here this evening with my colleague Andrew Gobiel, who's our senior hydrogeologist and the one who did all the hard work on this project. And we're here to provide a summary of the approach and the findings of the hydrogeologic investigation, and then between us answer any questions that you may have. My titles don't seem to come up. Sorry, I think I picked a bad template. But I'll just read them to you. The project background. This is, and quite a bit of this has been covered this evening, so I apologize for the repetition. This is, as we know, a proposed gasoline station and convenience store. It will include underground storage of gasoline in underground storage tanks or USTs. It's located in a mapped significant sand and gravel aquifer, according to the mapping of the Maine Geological Survey. It isn't uncommon in southern Maine to have underground storage of gasoline and petroleum products in mapped significant sand and gravel aquifers. There is increased risk associated with storage and use of petroleum products over a significant aquifer, but the additional risk is generally dealt with through regulation and design standards. And a couple of examples of that include in Cumberland and surrounding towns, including in Gray and also in Windham. And we've got the site location here called out, if you can see me moving around, the site location within the Maine Geological Survey map sand and gravel aquifer is in the yellow. And this slide is meant to cover Cumberland zoning and aquifer protection matters. And as we know, the proposed location is in the Village Center Commercial Zone. It's within the Aquifer Protection Overlay. And underground storage of petroleum is an allowed use upon a positive finding by the Planning Board that the use would not adversely affect groundwater. And we understand that the town would rely would rely on Maine Department of Environmental Protection to provide the guidance and enforcement that would govern the permitting and construction of underground storage tanks in the aquifer. And the next slide is meant to cover Maine DEP requirements. The rules for siting a UST facility in a map significant sand and gravel aquifer of a moderate yield. The requirements would include testing to confirm it was a moderate rather than a high yield aquifer. Application for a variance for siting a UST facility in a moderate yield aquifer. It includes more stringent design standards for the tanks themselves, as Kurt was walking us through some of the additional features, and it includes wellhead protection. And we had provided the work plan for the hydrogeologic investigation for the Maine DEP to review. They did not find that that investigation was needed, and they provided the opportunity for the project owner to choose to accept the published mapping and seek approval for a variance on the basis of that. The project owners decided that they would move forward with the geologic and hydrogeologic investigation to be able to better characterize the site, to understand groundwater direction and general velocity, and then be able to answer questions that may come up and as part of this process. And this is meant to give a background of the investigation planning phase, a summary of what we did for planning. We took a look at the site background information. We took a look at historical site use and area groundwater use. We looked at area USTs within the Aquifer Protection Overlay. And we're showing a summary of those USTs here. This is just a zoom in within the yellow mapped Maine Geological Survey significant sand and gravel aquifer with the proposed site right here. There are 4 USTs of 10,000 gallons each at the Maine Turnpike rest area. And there are 2 USTs, they are 8 and 10,000 gallons in size at a filling station about 700 feet south of the proposed site. So we took a look at USTs that already exist. We took a look at mapped geology, including the Maine Geological Survey, sand and gravel, the superficial geology, and the bedrock geology. And then we planned this hydrogeologic investigation, including soil borings and installing instruments to be able to take readings from. And we'll get into the details, or a summary, I should say, of our findings. But first, just an opportunity to look at in site scale. This is a figure 3.1 out of our January report, and it shows the property boundary here, and the area of the active site area. We established 4 soil boring locations at the approximate corners of the active site, drilled and observed and classified soils at each of those soil borings, and we drilled down to a depth where we reached a confining layer. And in one of those cases, in this corner, I should say north is to the left, so in the southwest corner, we reached bedrock. Bedrock was the confining layer. And in the other 3, we didn't reach bedrock, but we reached a clay layer. And so in each of those cases, bedrock or clay, it would confine the flow of groundwater. So we drilled down to a confining layer and classified soils, installed instruments for future, for the sake of taking measurements for the hydrogeologic investigation. And we'll move on to some findings. In the next slide, we'll talk about some soil and water quality observations that we made, and they're primarily at this location right here. There's not a map on the next slide, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that. It's at the northwest corner of the property. And this isn't meant to discuss soil and water quality, which were not the primary focus of this investigation. This investigation was planned to look at geology and hydrogeology, and was prior to when the property owners engaged in environmental due diligence. They hadn't yet conducted a phase 1 environmental site assessment. And so we started drilling in the northwest area of the site, and we made observations of evidence of contamination. This was based on field screening, visual and olfactory observation, and screening with some field instruments. And this contamination was in the soils above the water table and soil and groundwater at the water table in this one location. We communicated our observations to the project owners. They communicated with the property owners, had discussions, and identified that the property was developed as a gas station in 1957. I believe this is under previous ownership, and operated until 1989 when the tanks were removed. And since the time of our field work for this investigation, the project owners have embarked in environmental due diligence, so they've launched a phase 1 environmental site assessment, which is underway now, and that will review the environmental records of the property and any reports, state, federal, and local records that may relate to the site or the surrounding properties. And the project owners have also engaged us to conduct a baseline groundwater quality monitoring program, and that's underway right now. So again, this wasn't the primary focus of the investigation, but there were observations that we can share with you at this point. And then the primary focus was, in fact, the hydrogeology. And here are some of the summary statements of what we found. The average saturated thickness of permeable soil. So these are the sand and gravel soils that make up what the Maine Geological Survey has mapped as a significant sand and gravel aquifer. They average about 6 feet in thickness over the 4 soil borings that we drilled and installed. The water table is between 15 and 19 feet below ground surface, and the clay or bedrock confining layer that we mentioned is between 20 and 26 feet below ground. So water table 15 to 19 feet and an average of about 6 feet of saturated thickness. And so we're headed toward the margins of the aquifer at this location, which is consistent with how it's mapped on the Maine Geological Survey mapping. Groundwater flow direction is to the northeast, and I'll tell you, the map will show back up in a minute so we can look at this in plan view. To the northwest. And the average linear groundwater velocity is approximately 2.4 feet per day. The nearest user of groundwater, based on the Maine Geological Survey water well database, is approximately 900 feet away in the down gradient direction. And I'll stop here to issue an apology. We found a typo in our report in 2 places where instead of 900 feet, we wrote 1,900 feet. So apologies for the trouble. We've let Kurt know that, and we'll issue some revision pages that I think will make their way to the information that you have. But 900 feet away in the down gradient direction. And we understand that database is not considered to be complete. So one of our recommendations has been to do some additional detailed search and confirmation of users of groundwater. The nearest user of groundwater in the up-gradient direction is a water well on Kathy Lane. It's about 314 feet from the edge of the tanks, from the nearest part of the tank. And again, this is in the up-gradient direction. Groundwater is, according to the observations that we've made from this hydrogeologic investigation, is moving from southeast to northwest. Let's see what else I wanted to call out to you. Those were all of the summary points that I had set aside to call to your attention. I can stop there and either turn it back over to Kurt or to hear questions, however.
Why don't we go to Kurt, and then we can do the...
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm not going to go through this in depth. Carla asked that I consider the Route 100 design standards as it applies, and certainly when we come back, have a much more detailed review of that. But, you know, just looking at them in general, this site does comply or addresses those. We've limited the number of entrances. We've shared the driveways. We're going to have a good landscape plan around it and a common appeal of the buildings, driveways, or I'm sorry, parking to the sides and rear. But I wanted to bring it up just in case when anybody had been reviewing the packet. And by the way, I apologize for that packet. That's probably the thickest packet I've submitted in quite some time. I don't think I've ever had to use 2 binder clips before. But a lot of data. If anybody had seen something they had a question about the applicability of those, I'd be happy to hear it. So when we come back, we've got it thoroughly addressed. The building is, I think, a little bit of an interpretation of classical New England style. But I hope you see with the effort that's gone into making it a very attractive building. And the last thing I'm just going to mention here, as Carla had it in her memo, is that we had 2 waivers originally requested. There were some other waivers that the peer reviewer said that we should consider asking for. So in addition to the high-intensity soil survey and the market study, they noted that the interconnected driveway, which I think is the common entrance, is wider than 24 feet. And that combines with the combined entrances of wider than the total of 60 feet. And the reason for that is to be able to maneuver the refueling trucks back out of the site without running over curbs and getting it on the highway. So the primary entrance off of Gray Road is 32 feet. And again, we could probably look at doing some sort of mountable curb, but in order to get that truck maneuvering out. So we would be asking for waivers for 62 feet over 60 for the total entrances and that one entrance. Also in the sign ordinance, and Carla, you might be able to help us if we got this right, it says that in that zone, signs are not supposed to be illuminated between 10 and 7. And as a 24-hour business, we would ask for a waiver to allow us to have the downward illuminated sign open during all their business hours. And the last one that they noted in their comments was that the entrance on Skillen Road would be within 50 feet of the roundabout, if the roundabout gets constructed per the plan that we've all seen. And my question is, do we need to ask for a waiver for a condition that doesn't exist at this time? So if we do, we ask for the waiver, but if we don't have to, we won't. I think that is everything we had. I just want to say that I know that the peer review engineers have provided quite a few comments. We've addressed most of those. Knowing that this is a sizable project, we said we would like to go ahead and have this meeting with the planning board tonight, so that if any questions from the board or the public that we can accommodate would alter the plan, that we get them all back in one response to the peer review engineer and have that all buttoned up before we come back.
Thank you. Thank you. One thing that a lot of you may not know is that that the town hires a independent engineer to review all of the technical and a lot of the other aspects of this plan. So obviously, most of us don't have engineering degrees other from the Wheaties Box Top School of Engineering, so we don't totally take this at face value, but we have an independent person to look at these. And I think Carla is our peer review person here tonight.
He's not.
He's not. But we'll try the best we can when we get into the public thing of trying to answer these questions technically, because a lot of times there's a lot of conjecture and you kind of want to hear from the engineers and I think we've got a pretty good education today, like on fuel tanks or such. So that being said, I'll turn it over to the board for questions or comments. Paul?
It is an impressive 539-page document. I don't think we've ever seen I never have, the detailed traffic, the number of turns per minute, per day, per type of cars. Anyway, that's very helpful, I think. But I want to, of the 539 pages, around 438, there's a discussion about the contamination and some 55-gallon tanks still waiting to be assessed, I presume. So one question I have is remediation going to occur? Because that would be a positive thing. If the contaminated soil was removed, there's already contaminated groundwater according to this document. Could you address that?
Yes.
What the plan would be for that contamination?
Yes, absolutely. So as noted, the contaminated soils were located in where we believe the tanks had been for that building when it was a gas station. It's all consistent. We don't know what sort of protocols were in place when they removed it in 1997, but we expect that we will encounter more when we excavate it. As Lisa said, we're doing some more due diligence in terms of the phase one and understanding from a company in Auburn or Augusta Auburn that knows how to dispose of this sort of contaminated soil. So we've sent the samples to them, and they're going to come back and inform us. Right now, it's safely containerized in those drums, and whatever when they come back, it's going to help us understand what we need to do during construction, and then also whether or not we enter into what's called a VRAP program, which is a Voluntary Response Action Plan. It's something that the DEP has in place when you, as a landowner, say, I know I have a problem, and we're going to voluntarily do something to fix it. And sometimes it's like paving over it, and that's it. Other times it is putting a deed restriction on there saying you can't have a daycare. But that is something that we have to work out still.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And another question along the same lines, around 10 pages later, there's discussion of the distance, the main requirement, the distance from private wells is 300 feet. 15 Kathy Lane has 314 feet. Public water, 1,000 feet. And then there's recommendations to be sure you really know where all the wells are,
Yes.
which I presume would be done. But my question is 314 feet's not much further than 300 feet. The flow that was mentioned, there's a lot of flow data that, as Peter said, is a little hard to understand. And apparently the flow is northwest.
Yes, it's all away
And
from
how does that flow affect the 300 feet? Because that seems like not much of a margin for error.
So on this plan, probably can't see it very well, but there's a line that traces along here, and it's called out on the paper plans. That is 300 feet from all the wells on Kathy Lane, the closest one being up in this corner right here. So this line, 300 feet from that, and then 300 feet from a well that's not on the page. We've mapped that out, and we had the same surveyor who did this plan physically go out and locate those wells, so we know that that line is correct. 300 versus 314, we just have to live by a standard, and it was
Yeah.
declared that.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but I was just curious if the flow affected that.
You know,
Yeah.
but the flow is a happy circumstance in that it is all flowing, say, towards the intersection and beyond. So in this plan, it would be heading top right to bottom left. And so it is going away from all of the wells. It doesn't affect that. The 300 feet requirement doesn't change. It's not shortened or lengthened. But the fact that we know which way the groundwater is going through their work at least provides another level of comfort. Yeah.
Okay, let me, just one other question, is kind of anticipating concerns. You mentioned New Hampshire, this double, it sounds very impressive, the way it's described and the illustrations you showed. You mentioned New Hampshire, 20 years, never a failure. Do you know of any failure of this type system in the United States ever? I mean,
I don't know. If I were a bet man, I'd say it's happened. But what I would also say is all the information I know, and I asked the DEP to give me a statistic back, and they haven't yet.
Okay.
But
And-
I will get that and put it in.
And the last question I have, is there such a thing as, instead of underground storage tanks, above-ground storage tanks for this type of operation? Presuming that's not allowed, but I had to ask.
I can't say it's not allowed, but the measures that you have to do are much worse in that you have to have a containment system all the way around the
Yeah, and
above-ground tanks in
okay,
case they leak.
yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of a mess.
Yeah,
So,
all right.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Josh?
So the store hours are 24 hours a day, 365 days?
Yes.
Okay, so there's always going to be somebody there monitoring wherever that alarm is.
Yes.
You mentioned a couple of other kind of safeguards to leaks. Positive limiting barriers, and then an oil stop valve and 1,500-gallon sediment and oil separator. Can you just kind of a broad overview of what those are and what they are intended to do?
Yep, let me go ahead. The pad that goes around all of the fueling tanks, you've seen them probably in some gas stations where they have a groove, a series of grooves all the way around the outside. And then those are specifically designed to be beyond the reach of any hose. So if somebody is walking out and accidentally squirts, and they squirt a little bit of fuel on the ground, it will get caught in those grooves. And they can hold up to some percentage or some gallon of that. The oil stop valve is something that goes inside of the last structure, and it's an interesting thing that has a floating cylinder. It's on a rail, and for whatever reason that I don't completely understand, it floats in water and not in gas. So if gas gets in there, it sinks and settles down and cuts off all the liquid. So it sort of stops it dead in the tracks. And the tank would be after that, and I'm sorry to say it's not on this plan, but that's just sort of a belt and suspenders. So if for some reason that oil stop valve took a moment to settle and something got through, you would have one more chamber for it to get to before it got into the soil filter.
Okay, thank you.
I have some questions. Hi. Who will own this location?
Who owns it?
Who will own it?
Oh,
if
it will
it's-
be owned by Cumberland Real Estate Group.
Okay.
Yep.
Is Rusty Lantern, is that a franchise operation, or?
Yes, it is, and
Okay.
they operate about 30 total of these stores. I'd say about 20 of them are in Maine, and then there's some outside of Maine. But,
Okay.
Yep, they lease from whatever LLC we've set up for that site. So,
Okay.
yes.
And you have various franchisees then, or?
We only lease to Rusty Lantern Market, but we have several sites. The most recent ones that we've opened are in Turner, West Paris, and Bethel. This store that we've just shown here in some of those pictures are those locations. And then again, we have several other from, well, I guess we'd call the Gen 1 store, which is still a very nice store, but it didn't have the indoor-outdoor seating area that we're moving towards. And we have those everywhere from Cook's Corner to Loudon, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay, okay. Will you have EV charging stations?
At this point, no, but we are planning for them. We're going to have conduit that runs from the pole to the backside where these 8 spaces are located by the dumpster enclosure. That would be the logical place to have them set up. But currently, the demand is unknown, and frankly, the price upon first opening is pretty prohibitive. But we are planning to be able to add those in the future.
Okay, so you're setting up for that. is what you're
Yes.
saying. Okay. Let me see. Why would we want to waive the market study in this case?
The company that, well, I'm sorry.
I mean, they must have made a market study, or you must have made one.
We have had one done, and I'll let my boss explain that one better. I'm the technical guy.
Hi, I'm Jim Howard with Priority Group, and actually, I'll be the one that owns the store. I own all the Rusty Lanterns, almost, that we build. They're not a franchise in like they're a Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's franchise. They're owned by one guy, John Cook, whose office is in Brunswick. So we are the preferred developer for him and Irving Energy. So we build the stores, own them, and we lease them to those guys. So they're not an actual franchise. And you're talking about a market study for the property, for the business, as to how well it'll operate. I actually have one.
Okay.
And I'll get it to Kurt. I'm not sure Kurt knows that we have done one. But I'll get the market study done and we'll get it submitted to you. We do one for every property that we decide to build a store on.
Okay, very good.
So we can get you that.
Bridget, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just hoping Bill or Carla could give us an update on the roundabout.
Bill doesn't have a microphone, but do you want to go to the podium?
I want to sit next to you, Carl. Right now, we are hopeful that we'll get a congressional earmark. We'll know by May or June if that does happen. I think that is a question the planning board's going to have to deliberate on as well, because I think you have to deal with the project that's in front of you. It's kind of hard to plan because that could be, even if we get the earmark, it could still be 2 years away from actually breaking ground. So that's on a fast track. So I would focus on the plan that's in front of you, and I think they've done a great job, and they've been extremely cooperative in everything they've done, especially related to the roundabout.
Well, then I guess follow-up question, what is the timeline?
For this project?
Yes.
We would probably break ground late this year and have it open in the spring, pretty much as soon as the plant's open. We expect the timeline for approvals through the Maine DOT and the DEP to extend into summer, late summer. So yeah, unfortunately, it will not be open this year.
Thank you.
Anything else, Bridget? Lorraine?
Just one quick question. You mentioned sidewalks to facilitate pedestrians coming to the market. Is there a sidewalk plan from Gray Road along Skillen to Kathy Lane? Or is it just in the front and then across the street in front of Mr. Kopp's
Oh,
property?
yeah, I'm sorry. So, yes, there's this one here, and we would have the crosswalk and that crosswalk. But there is sidewalk that runs the entire frontage along Gray Road and the frontage here along Skillen. So that will be there, and that's part of the 25-foot landscape zone. It's in there, and we'll have the landscaping along with it. So that will mirror what exists across the street, pretty much.
And then the crosswalk that you're proposing with the pedestrian can hit the light or hit the button and it flashes to alert them. Is that, because the roundabout is not coming anytime soon, is that the crosswalk across the entrance of Skillen, or is it the one that's crossing Gray Road?
It's the one crossing Gray Road right here. This one crossing Skillen to the far side, that's got the flashing beacon to, get people to stop. And I mentioned in there, I didn't go over it tonight, but there are some additional signages that are being proposed, a plan that was prepared by Gold Palmer for some advanced stop sign warnings approaching this intersection. So that's going to be the safety. This is considered more safe, if you will, than crossing mid-block.
And what is the speed limit, do we know? Fast. Yeah, I was going to say.
It's 35.
Thank you.
It's posted as 35.
So where is the septic system going to be located?
It's, there's, this one here is for the bank. It comes out through these green lines. It's got grease traps and septic tanks, and then the bank has its own septic tank, and it comes out separate. So they're both located to the rear.
So the discharge water after going through the system will be going northwest, is that correct?
Yes.
And I assume right now that the sewage discharges from Kathy Lane are also going northwest. Would that be a correct assumption?
I would say so.
Is that from the hydrologist? Is that a correct?
It is a little bit outside of what.
If you could come to the.
Hi, I'm Andrew with CVMR Engineers. That is a little bit outside of where we did set our wells, which were about on these four corners right here. But we would expect, just based on the surrounding conditions, that it would follow that same pattern. But we don't have any wells up in that direction.
Okay. So again, it is said before that the discharge will not be flowing before Kathy Lane. Geography-wise, and I don't know if it's Kurt or that, I need to know a little bit more about the property behind it, right next to Skilling's Road. Whose property is that?
Is that this one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Kopp's property.
Mr. Kopp.
So it's, now what about the one next to that?
This guy right here.
Yeah.
It's labeled as Mr. Gibbs, Richard Gibbs.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little, that it looks like there's pretty good buffer between the back part of that property and most of the properties on Kathy Lane. But it does look like, and we kind of want assurance that, it isn't, they aren't, that there's some deciduous trees there. So, but I am a little concerned of the lack of buffering, maybe for Mr. Gibbs's property. So we kind of need to make sure that's okay. And then the other one for the Kathy Lane people is the lighting. That, I mean, the buffering will take care of some of it, but my understanding from, again, my engineering degree, that, lighting can be focused downward so that the light pollution for those folks, I mean, the other side of the road is all commercial, but I just kind of want to make sure that these folks on Kathy Lane aren't looking into lights. When we did the school project on Main Street, had 2 or 3 neighbors across the street that had legitimate things, and we were able to do down lighting. So I just want to make sure that that's taken care of, and I assume with the traffic study and everything, as concerns may come up from the public, that those are addressed. So I think those are mine. I mean, I think we're all concerned about the groundwater and the tanks and everything, and that, you know, more work, and that's got to be signed off on the DOT, and your traffic stuff has got to, I mean, the environmental protection and the traffic has got to be signed off on the other. So if anything else from the board? Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Carla, didn't you mention that we would get a hydrogeologist peer review?
If the
So
board
they-
would like one, yes.
Yeah,
And I asked for some names, and I think Bill Shane has some names of people that can do it. So that's
Yeah,
what
it-
you'd like to do. We'll
yeah,
get
it
done.
seems in a situation like this,
I
that it would be a very wise thing to do.
I agree. So as Curtis has been explaining, apparently you're having a public forum meeting Thursday night, did you
There's
say?
a public informational meeting
And where is that
Thursday,
being held?
right here in this building.
Okay.
5 to 6,
From 5 to 6, so these folks can come to that.
certainly. The abutters would have gotten a notification in the mail.
Okay. And then after that meeting, you're able to submit your DEP application, correct? And then you're anticipating that's going to take probably through this summer, and then it would be back to the planning board, either late summer or early fall. And at that point, Mr. Chair, we will have the town engineer here as well. We can
Right.
have the peer review hydrogeologist
Right.
here.
Okay. So anyway, at this point, I'm going to open it up to the public with a couple of ground rules, because that if you have questions, you may have comments, but if you have questions, please address them through me, and we'll get the appropriate person to come up and answer your questions, hopefully to your satisfaction, or if we don't know, we'll make sure we get out and find out. So I will open and please just state your name and where you live, and you're welcome to come up. Yes.
Hi, Joyce Bond from Blackstrap Road in West Cumberland, and I'd like to say thank you. I think this is a great proposal. I do have a couple of concerns. One, as you had mentioned, the buffer zone for Kathy Lane. I hope you'll be very diligent in making sure it's not just deciduous trees. Make sure that there is a permanent buffer in the winter as well.
Did I miss the thing? Deciduous are they the ones that don't have, that have
They're the
leaves?
ones that lose their leaves.
Oh,
deciduous.
evergreens, I mean,
Okay.
okay. And I didn't get a forestry degree either.
I originally was going to recommend perhaps the big panels that they use for the main turnpike, but the problem with that is it also attracts people who like to paint on them, and then you have a constant maintenance, so maybe just, natural scaping would be good. But I like the idea that you are focusing on protecting that neighborhood. A couple of things I would just like to say about the Rusty Lantern. You have some open space patios. I just hope you make sure that cars cannot accidentally go onto those spaces, or on purpose, whatever. Protect, I'd love the idea of open space, but just make sure anyone is protected sitting there, because it would be a tragedy to have something happen. And the last thing I'd like to see would be, or hopefully see, is perhaps a connection from the bank to whatever will go in further besides Caddy's, so that there is a way for all the businesses along there to stay off of Route 100 once you're into, say, Rusty Lantern. Then you could go to the bank, possibly grab an ice cream, and whatever else comes down the road. Not have it cut off just to the bank, or at least have an option for the future for it to be opened all the way through. Thank you.
So a right-of-way you're talking?
Yeah,
so-
or, a way to traverse all the businesses without.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Davis, 38 Interurban Drive, just to the east, I guess, of Kathy Lane, through the woods. I guess I'm just, first of all, I'm in support of this project, but I do have a question and ask the board to consider the kitchen and filtration as far as cooking and stuff. I've been on the planning board in a few different towns, and when the McDonald's came in Gray, I sat on there, and that was an issue. When they start using the fryolators, or whatever they're doing in the kitchen, that's the odors in the sense from the kitchen are controlled.
I guess I'd ask, while you're up, can somebody address that? That would, as an old friolator vet from the Lions booth at the fairgrounds, I usually smell like a French fry when I come home, so.
But that's usually what gets me from Topsom to Cumberland during the fairs. I can smell the french fries. So it usually works. Good question. We have a real good suppression system in the kitchen. And good news is we don't have fryolators. We don't have grills. So we bake everything in ovens, in convection ovens.
Oh.
So you won't have all of those smells
Thank you.
at all.
Anybody else? Come on up.
So, microphone. So thank you. It's great to live in America where you can get a chance to speak at a meeting like this. I think that's a pretty cool thing. So my first question is.
I'm sorry, but for minutes purposes, could I have your name?
Oh,
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Ross Goldberg, 18 Faraday Drive.
Okay, thank you.
My first question is, I haven't heard any mention of what's going to happen to the Tuesday evening vintage car show every Tuesday in the summer. Just kidding. They say start off with humor. Although it would be nice to continue to have that great show there. So I'm here standing up as a voice for the climate. The new environmental kid on the block. I think that the climate really deserves a place in these conversations always. And I would venture to say that it deserves a place in that list of things that were read before that apply to all of our projects and the things that we conceive of and that we go forward with in the town. Bill Nye is a mentor, kind of a hero of mine, and he always says the most important thing you can do is mention it as much as possible. So here I am mentioning the climate. And I think that it's a single point of failure. Single point of failure is that one thing that if it fails, the whole kit and caboodle goes down with it. And as an example, the James Webb Space Telescope had over 300 single points of failure. And no matter how good everything else is, and I have to say that it sounds like a great project. And it sounds like it's well thought through. I think that if it goes forward, it'll be a great addition to the community. And my neighbor Dan is looking forward to get a closer gas station so that he doesn't have to drive down the road so much. But climate is our single point of failure. It doesn't matter how well conceived everything else is. It doesn't matter how perfectly well things run. If the climate is not addressed, all else fails. And I just want to take a moment to make sure that I'm not missing anything on my scrap of paper here. No, thank you. Simply put, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Beat you. My name's Darrell Quinn. I'm at 8 George Road, so don't get a direct impact except for everything else that's going on in the project. Half-heartedly, they just had a thing on how it's made, and it was a great segment on how a gas system works, the description of the truck. So if you want to YouTube it, it was educational as all get out. Oversimplified, describing the tanks, the stainless steel, the interior, and then the coating that they put on the outside of it. I think I don't have a problem with the project at all. Everybody else has addressed it very, very well. No, I think they've got a good job, and I understand everybody's concerned about the environment and everything else that's going on. And, but at the same time, we gotta move forward. And everybody's doing the best they can, doing a great job, and we've made so many improvements over the years. And I've been into a number of their stores. I'm a road salesman, been on the road for 45 years. And I've been into a number of their facilities, and they are good, they are clean, and they do a very good job. So we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Scott Morgan, 2 Forest Lane. Question is, my parents own Kathy Lane, 7 Kathy Lane, which is a Gibbs residence. I think I read in the ordinance it was a 25-foot rear buffer that needs to be landscaped. I can't really tell where if there is any landscaping there, so that would
Well,
be
I
a
think-
consideration of.
Yeah, I think we're really gonna pay attention to that particular property because we will make sure that it is properly buffered because they're really the ones that are the closest to it, and it's definitely on our radar.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I had.
Come up.
I'm Jean Graves. I live at 20 Faraday Drive. And actually, I have a couple of questions. I'm a little concerned because I still don't understand where the roundabout and if for sure that's going to happen. I don't know if that's clear.
Bill?
If you have any pull with Congress, please call now, and we will know, we hope to know by May or June.
Okay.
So
But
that's
she
why I
wants to
said
know
that
where it is.
If it's going to move forward.
Okay.
And it's still gonna be right in this intersection right here.
All right, but if it's not there, I guess, if it doesn't happen and this project goes forward, I'm still a little concerned because I'm understanding that there will be sidewalks, and I'm still not totally clear where the sidewalks are gonna be. I heard something about on one side of the street, but not on the other? If we're talking now about,
Right in here. They're following right around the inside.
and so will they be on both sides?
Just, this is their responsibility. There is already a
Would you
side-
like to go to the podium and show everybody that?
No, I'll do it on my turn.
But wait, so is there's basically not a sidewalk on this side of the street in order to cross over? It's not sidewalk to sidewalk.
Let me just, so this is the plan that shows the off-site. So here's our corner.
Right.
And so this right here is currently a raised island. We put in a landing. This one also exists. And then from the far side of Mr. Kopp's driveway to
Okay.
Faraday, that would be the sidewalk here.
Okay,
And then the other one from Kathy Lane will start right where the Kathy Lane ends, or, you know, the intersection, and run straight down, right behind the existing curb to the entrance of the new project here. So that'll come all the way down here. And the cops have asked that they put a fence or plantings or something right behind that sidewalk. But it'll connect Kathy Lane and Faraday Lane, so anybody who lives on those two streets could walk there. Now, if The roundabout goes forward. That plan includes sidewalks on the other side of the street, and it extends much further south on Main Street and
Right.
further east, I guess, on Skillen.
Okay,
But they're only asking this project to connect to Kathy and Faraday.
okay, all right, that's fine. I was just trying to figure that out. Okay,
Certainly.
thank you. That clears that.
Okay, anybody else?
Somebody there.
Yes. Come on up.
I'm Rory Lee, and I live at 18 Faraday Drive with Ross and the sometime noisy dog. He's getting better, though. He's a service dog in training, and he is alerting me that there are people. So we're working on when it's appropriate to do that. I'm very glad to hear that you are concerned about the neighbors and the light. I would also say that with a 24-hour operation, especially in the summer when people are out late and they're sitting around on the patio and it gets kind of noisy, you might want to consider some kind of, I don't know what you would do about it, but some kind of restriction. I know that it's pretty noisy late at night when the things are brought in. We're right behind Cop Motors, so some people are disturbed by that pre-existing, delivery of destroyed vehicles late at night. But I'm really concerned that the development is in harmony with the people who have been living there and as relatively new residents over the last 3 or 4 years. We're concerned about the quality of life. So light pollution is an issue and noise pollution is an issue. So I hope that you will also consider noise with that 24-hour day sort of thing. Thanks.
We do have noise ordinances. By the way, if you still have that,
No, we don't.
we don't?
No,
I
we
thought
don't.
we did.
Not yet.
Okay, well,
We would like to.
but, if you still have that therapy dog, when that Chase project comes, I could probably use it up here beside me.
It's actually a service assistance dog.
Oh, okay. Well, oh,
You're going to want a police dog.
yeah, right, probably. Bill?
Mr. Chairman, Bill Shane, Town Manager. I just want to commend Jim Howard tonight. He has put together a solid team of very technically competent people that really, I think, address some of the big concerns of the project. Some of you who might recognize Jim, he was at our first roundabout meeting because he wanted to see what was going on the first time we did this in West Cumberland. What I learned tonight was pretty interesting. The 2.4 feet per day that the groundwater is moving in a northwest direction, extremely important. Those of you who've been around a long time, back in the 90s, we had a well advisory zone protection in West Cumberland that many people couldn't drink their water and had systems that were several, probably close to $8,000 or $9,000 that they had to filter their water, their groundwater through for almost 30 years. And the person that helped us eliminate that and work with DEP to lift the well advisory protection was Lisa Jacobs. And Lisa is an amazing groundwater hydrologist and geologist. Andrew has worked with us for years and decades on the gravel pits out in West Cumberland, and both are more knowledgeable about Cumberland than anyone that we're going to hire to try to be your basically peer review. And it'll be entertaining to kind of stump the band, and Lisa will be the person they'll try to stump, and unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be successful. Lisa's also a Cumberland resident. I gave her up to Curtis. He said, who's the person you would use on a job like this? And I said, Lisa Jacobs. I said, because she knows Cumberland, she knows this area. She and I have worked very closely together on the well advisory zone, as well as on the protection of the aquifer. That all being said, there's still concerns that I have as the manager that I will ask the planning board to consider when this does come back before you. And you have the ability under our well advisory zone to add additional conditions of approval. And those conditions would be basically to have the code enforcement officer do an annual inspection that would be required, and that they would report back to you, he would report back to you, he or she would report back to you with their findings on an annual basis. This is way too important. This aquifer is a 5 billion gallon aquifer, 5 billion gallons. It's one of the largest in the state. We have 3 very significant aquifers in Cumberland, one near the fairgrounds, one near Main Street, and this one in West Cumberland. And the fortunate thing now that we didn't have 20 years ago is that we have public water lines that are extended out in this area. So there is the backup plan, but not the, it's not always the best plan, but there is a backup plan to allow for public water should problems happen. This is the first time I heard the northwest direction flow of the groundwater, which would have been crucial. We knew kind of the direction of the flow for the well advisory the DEP put on us in the 90s, but not to the level of detail that we have here. And finding the contaminant on site and bringing that forward to the board, absolutely just fantastic. I wish the more of these things that come up, the more of these things we can remediate and basically get rid of, the better that protection ordinance is going to work. And I'm just really pleased that we'll be working with a team like Jim Howard and Curtis, and the information they brought forward tonight is invaluable. But to me, it just shows a commitment that they want to be here and be part of our community. So just wanted to share that with the board tonight, but we will be looking, when it does come back, to get the code enforcement officer involved, just for forever going forward, that there will be some type of check-in so that people can see that this is being followed up with, and that tanks are tanks. They are subject, they're mechanical equipment, they are subject to failure, but let's make sure they don't fail, and if there's an issue, we know about it quickly. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Bill. Anybody else, Terry?
Terry Maloney Kelly. I'm still confused about the sidewalk thing. I got really excited early on in the presentation because I thought I heard the sidewalks were going to go down finally to the housing projects on the hill. Did I make that up just out of hopeful thinking, or was that said?
I don't know where you're asking, but
Okay, so
point here that-
beyond the scope of this.
Oh, well.
So I don't know why it would, but maybe I was just hopeful thinking. Okay. So,
I would say if the roundabout is funded, it would likely get there, because what I've seen on that roundabout plan, it goes forever.
it had to do with the roundabout?
It's a mile on each side.
Okay, so I
This will
did
only
hear
go
it.
to
I was
Fairway.
all excited about that.
Let's
So,
be excited.
thank you.
Write your Congress.
No, yeah. I want to first off say that I am in favor of this project. I have concerns, and I'm really a lot more pleased with it to know that we're going to get a fancy convenience store versus just a standard one, because this is Cumberland after all. I reached out to our town planner because I saw nothing addressed about the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's a big nut, really, if you think about our community, anywhere else in our community. I was told that this is in the village center commercial, and so it's not addressed, so I don't know really what that means, if it's discussable or if it just is what it is. So that's my first question, I would say, because I think that's a big stretch for our community. The lucky part for everybody else in our town is this is the only zone that it exists in, and it happens to be in West Cumberland. And this zone hasn't been particularly successful, as we all know, over time. So I really would like there to be, for my neighbors. I'm here to advocate for my neighbors. I do not live in this neighborhood. You all do, imagine. I mean, this is abutting a residential neighborhood, not another industrial parkway or where you typically see these stores. So my question to ask the owner is, are all of your stores, can I ask, or do I have to ask you?
No,
Do all of your stores,
just
are they
go
all
ahead.
open 24 hours a day?
Yes, all but one, Topsom. Our Topsom store is not open 24 hours a day.
And because?
Well, because it was the first store we opened, and nobody in Maine stays up past 9 o'clock, so we just started closing the stores early, and that one stayed closed, to be honest with you, and no one's ever asked to open it back up, but all of our stores are open 24 hours a day. And, you know, they get some business at night, not a lot, but the big benefit that we hear from the community when we keep them open is during bad weather and snowstorms, people have the ability to get gasoline and get to the store, and plow truck operators can fill up, and ambulances can fill up. So we tend to keep them open 24/7. I'm not sure if that's still a good idea for us, but we do that.
Thank you for that, because we certainly have gotten along just fine not having something open 24 hours a day. So I would just like to ask that there be some consideration, perhaps starting out, to see what is the real deal, you know, what is the real traffic. And I would be curious what the police department would have to say in relative to that whole scenario, because I don't think they had any comments with what I saw. Yeah, well, I would think that they would have a comment. There's no other business in Cumberland that's open 24 hours a day that will, you know, attract whoever is out at 2 o'clock in the morning. So my other concern quickly is for the neighborhood, and honestly, trees, really. I know that perhaps putting the barriers up, they might get vandalized, which is even more reason why there should be a barrier protecting these folks' backyard from everybody who's traversing through, going to the ATM at 3:30 in the morning or whatever else. And it will also help, at least the lights that are coming in and out, which I do believe hit some of those residential houses with that one driveway. And so we need to take care of those folks, because this is a tough area already. So those are my only thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Yes.
Hi, Nicole Nevelis at 354 Blanchard Road Extension. And I really want to commend on a very well-presented and comprehensive plan that was presented. I was going to read through the whole thing, and when I saw, wow, this is 700-something pages long, this is not going to be something to consume in a couple hours. So some of the things that come up for concern to me, one of them is the aquifer. It has been a very, very, very debated topic of concern with everybody. And I would say somebody who lived near the Beard McGuire Superfund site in Holbrook, Massachusetts, I'm especially sensitive to anything that is done that could jeopardize the water that we have. So I really want to say I very much appreciate that Anne spoke up and asked that due diligence be done by a peer review, because you can never not be safe enough. Also, I'm very curious, and my question is for the folks that did the study. There was that note that water 20 years ago, there was this big concern, but today it's different. What's to say that something's not going to change back 20 years from now? Do we have to be concerned about ecological changes or environmental changes that might have to make us rethink and say what might be okay today? The conditions have changed again. So, is it possible in that location that we shift back to the same problems that we had 20 years ago?
Go ahead. Beyond my pay grade.
I'm stepping up to maybe ask for a little bit of clarification, because I'm not sure I know exactly what you meant by problems 20 years ago.
Okay, was it not mentioned that, you know, at some point in time, there was problems with water flows, with the wells, and so there are extra precautions put in place?
I think she's referring to the well advisory
Thank you,
zone that was established in that area, and Bill probably can talk with you about that.
Hopefully that never happens again. What the DEP found was that somebody had thrown a quart of dry cleaning fluid
Oh,
into a well deliberately, and
Okay.
it basically destroyed the water supply for 30 years out there, because nobody did the level of intensity that they did on this one site
Okay.
for West Cumberland. Yeah.
That helps clarify
Yeah,
that.
that
Thank
was
you.
bad.
The second concern that I have is the safety that comes with a 24-hour location. You know, in the local police may have said, we don't have any big concerns here, but this will probably be a beacon, because who knows where's the latest, you know, where's the next 24-hour location that people can go to that's here. But 2 weekends ago, I had to call to have the police come out because we had somebody run a stop sign in my neighborhood, and had I not taken a sip out of my water bottle, I would have been splat across that car. And I was told that, you know, I just asked, could you just sit here for a little bit? And I was told, well, there's only one of us on because somebody else is on vacation for the entire town of Cumberland. So when we start to think about, you know, scalability and how well we're protecting our town, you know, having a 24-hour store open in the middle of the night, certainly it's going to be the only place people go to and hang out. And maybe, again, because I'm from the city and it's a bit different, you know, you do tend to get people, and sometimes people that aren't doing favorable things, sitting out in that parking lot in the middle of the night. So I would just like the planning board to consider, as the decisions are being made and as this is moving through and as this is being developed, what kind of safety measures are being put in place so that we don't have transient people in the parking lot, or, you know, we can deal with the fact that there can be safety issues. So those are my concerns. But I love the way that's been designed. I like the way that's been really, really well thought out. And, you know, and I think, as I saw in one of the Facebook posts, we all love the cop dogs. So if you put a nice statue to the cop dogs out there, you know, you might win us all over. But I do think that, you know, it is very different from that part of Cumberland. You know, it's obviously a project that it's your land, you're going to do what you want to do with that. But a number of people were really hoping for something that was, when we thought we were going to get a corridor for business development, that maybe it would be some nice shops and restaurants versus a gas station and a bank, in which we already have a gas station there, and then we have J Brothers down the road. So, you know, I'll just be the voice for a lot of the squeaky wheels that have been here, but I think we all had a kind of a different vision of what may have been happening. But it'll be interesting to see what ends up coming up there. So, thanks.
Thank you. Carla, just a question. The turnpike, the two turnpike things are open 24 hours, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know in Cumberland that, you know, you can actually go to a Burger King, but you've got to kind of go, got to kind of.
You have to walk.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to walk.
You walk through a fence.
Anybody else would like to comment? Yes, go ahead.
Kathy McDonald, 17 Tammy Lane. My concern is the buffer for Kathy Lane. And the reason I say that is because I do have the condos across the street from me. And even though I have some wonderful neighbors here, especially Ross and Rory, the buffer was horrible.
Somebody agreed with you.
I get to see Toby all the time. That's funny. But for the planning board yourself, what is the buffer zone consists of, because all I've got is a few trees, and it really doesn't block out any noise, and I can easily see into their houses. And there's only one neighbor that slams the door when he's putting his dogs out. But it's the buffer that I want trees closer together than what was put across from me. And Kathy Lane certainly deserves that. And I know there's quite a few trees between some of the houses, but I just want to make sure as the planning board what your rules are for a buffer zone, and that the trees are closer together than what I ended up with, but that's a Jim Smith story too, so.
Thank you.
I could address that.
Yeah, Carla?
The ordinances define buffering as being any combination of distance, which is just, it's far away from whatever is happening, fencing, or vegetation. So those are the three things we look to consider. And what the planning board's always done in the past, and I help out with this once the project's approved, is making sure that the specific abutter is happy with what the planning board finally approves in terms of the amount of plantings, the type of plantings. If they desire to have a fence, then the planning board thinks about whether that's appropriate or not. And when the trees are actually put into the ground, I will often go out and work with the landscape installer to make sure that, and the abutter to come out and make sure we like right exactly where the trees are. So that's how we do it.
And a good example of that would be when we did the solar array down on Route 1, that one of the abutters way over on, what's the Powell Road?
Powell Road, yeah.
Was concerned about the view. We went out, did a site walk, and of course the owner found out that his part of his shed was on the other person's property. That was another story for another day. But we did require the developer to do more vegetation. So I think it's kind of a collaborative thing that would, between the abutter, there's pluses and minuses for a fence, and there are pluses and minuses for trees. So I think the thing is, we will require the developer to work with the residents and Carla will help to see if we can sort it out to everybody's satisfaction.
Okay, because I was never notified or knew about the ruling on that. So I'm guessing I'm probably too late on it, but at least the Kathy Lane people will know that they can speak up about it.
Oh, yeah.
The trees are finally starting to grow some after the first batch didn't do any good because they planted them late November in the first time, which is crazy for Maine. So I think, that maybe there also should be something about they need to be planted at a proper time, not when it's freezing out.
Yeah, we have, that comes up also, and again, it's something that Carla works with.
Okay.
We get a performance guarantee from the developer, and we hang on to that until the landscaping is in and established for 1 year.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Yes.
I just want to address the landscape issue one more time because I will reach out to you folks that are neighbors to us there, and regardless of what the code says and how few or how many trees we can have, we'll make sure that we design a landscape plan that you get to approve before we do it. And then we don't plant small trees, we plant big tall trees, and we built 30 stores, a lot of them in neighborhoods. In 2013, we won an award from the Maine Association of Planners for a gas station, because we built it in the neighborhood and we built it right. So we know that we need to pay attention to you guys, and I assure you that we'll do that.
Okay, anybody else? So here's what will happen, that, again, the developers will take the comments that heard from you, us. There are steps that have got to be taken with the DOT and the environmental protection, and all of that will be put together, and they will probably come back sometime in late summer with their proposal, which will be, again, probably looking for preliminary approval. Now, again, the abutters will be notified, but the other things, a couple of you folks figured out that if you go to the agenda and put in the item number, that you folks see the exact same stuff that we do. There's no little secret code where the planning board sees the stuff that you don't, that everything, the memos from Carla and any other thing is right by the agenda. So you'll be privy to the same information we have well before the meeting, at least probably 3 weeks, and you'll have a chance to formulate your questions. One of the things that, because we're quasi-judicial, that direct communication with a member of the planning board is not permitted. But if you've got concerns and everything, you can send a letter or an email to the planning board, and it'll be included in our deliberations. It would be the same thing if you stood up at a meeting. But the rules of being quasi-judicial, that you can't lobby us. So just, with that, do you folks feel that you've got enough guidance to move on to the next phase?
Peter,
Yes, I want to,
we need to close the public hearing.
Oh, okay, you're right. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Nope. Is it
What?
Get one more.
What, one?
comment?
Oh, Ron? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ron Kopp, Jr. from West Cumberland. I just want to make a comment. There were two names dropped here tonight. One is Jim Howard, which is a gentleman sitting in the office, and the other one is Jim Schmidt. Let's not get them mixed up. I want to make that very clear. Jim Howard is a stand-up guy, and I cannot say that about Mr. Schmidt. That's all I have to say.
Okay. So, am I,
I think
so,
now we can close.
okay.
Carla, just before we, what are the buffering requirements between Route 1 and this?
Well, there's
Site.
the Route 100.
Correct.
There's the 25-foot landscape buffer that
Right. So-
extends all along the corridor.
So we're going to need only on the front?
Just the front, but that's just to address the corridor. Then there's the buffering.
What's the buffer, are we going to need a waiver to the COPS property since they're putting a driveway in?
Since they're putting a driveway next to it, next to the
There's
cop property.
you're putting a
Ron-
driveway
There's a
from
little
this
bump out,
site
right.
into his property, correct?
No, no,
Oh,
I'm not,
well, the property that is right along Skilland Road.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he's
Ron
got
Kopp.
his cursor on it. See
That's
where the
Ron
dot
Kopp
is?
Senior. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one with the big garage.
Right,
Where you
and
can
we
see-
have a driveway going into that.
Well, I don't know if, assuming that if they don't own the land underneath the driveway, that they have a right-of-way of some sort, but I thought they owned the actual land underneath it, but let's see what.
Well, I'm just saying, I think we're gonna, if that's what the property owner wants, then we're just gonna have to have a waiver there, correct? Because we're not gonna have a buffer.
Oh, I see where you're going, that, to not do buffering, yeah. How is that?
So it's not Ron's driveway, but it is access from our lot to his garage, so he can take all of those collectible cars that we like so much in and out all the time. So we will give him an easement so that he can do that,
Right,
but it's
so-
not his driveway. It's just a curb cut from our driveway to his garage so he can put his cars in and out.
Yeah, so just, I don't know if we need a waiver for that or not, but just throw that in the mix. In regards to the other waivers, I think the market study is great, that solves that problem. I didn't see anything on there that I was concerned about. I would say, I don't think we want to consider doing a waiver to the tangent to the proposed, roundabout.
Yep.
Because we don't have a roundabout, and I don't know if it's really gonna be, you know, a violation. So that would be my opinion, and, you know, I don't need to do a waiver for something that may or may not need to be waived at some point in the future.
Any other additional comments from the board? So do you feel that you've got enough feedback from both the public and us to kind of wander on to the next adventure?
Yes, no, I think this is outstanding. I appreciate everybody coming out and giving up an evening, staying late. This is the sort of thing that's not in the ordinance that helps us make the best possible project to protect you. And I think it's admirable that so many people came out to protect Kathy Lane that don't live on Kathy Lane. So we thank you, and we'll look forward to coming back with a completed project.
Thank you. Do we have any other things to discuss?
We need to table the
Close
motion,
the-
need
close
a
the
motion, right?
public hearing.
What?
Did you close the public hearing?
I guess I did once, and I'll do it again after Ron, so I'll close the public hearing.
So Carla, you're still
I think a-
prefer we table the motion?
I think a
the-
motion to
the-
table is in order.
Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to table.
So moved. I need to
Second.
read the thing.
A second?
Second.
Non-debatable, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so am I ready to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Do we have any?
Do we have any
Don't we have one more
administrative
item?
matters or new business?
We do?
Do we? I don't know.
Administrative matters, new business?
Oh, do we have any?
Not that I can think of. Obviously, the
You
Chase.
said something about we're going to sign,
Oh, yes, before you walk out the door, I need you to sign that modification of lot lines. I know the project that everyone's wondering about is David Chase's project down in the pit, and I don't know for sure when that's coming forward. I think they're hoping to be here next month, but that might not happen.
Any other new business?
Well, what about the gym?
Foley's Gym, at this point, is gone. Yeah, there was, the owner of the land and the Foley's folks couldn't come to agreement on what was included in that purchase and sale, so they're going through legal channels right now. We're hopeful that Foley's Gym will come back on some piece of land out that way, but we
not
don't know
now.
for
It's
sure.
not going forward now.
It's not going forward now, unfortunately.
Anything else? Any other new business? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Signing.
Yeah, sign the plat.
Thursday night is when they're hosting